The voice of the Las Vegas Aviators, Matthew Neverett, today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Booney, one name, all passion. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen of the day. I'm from the Bay Area, and I've been an A's fan since '81. This isn't just another A's podcast. This is the most informative and insightful show on the A's, period. We cover the A's every single day, breaking down games, delivering the latest team news, and giving you deep, thoughtful analysis you will not find anywhere else. If it's happening in Sacramento or in Las Vegas, we got you covered. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube, and please hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. Stick around. This is Locked On A's, where we don't just recap wins, we celebrate the fight. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, A's fans, strap in and turn it up because the buzz around this ball club is loud and only getting louder. The A's are suddenly the team everyone is whispering about, except on this show, we don't whisper. We shout it from the rooftops. And today, we've got someone who's been right in the thick of it. He's the voice of the red-hot Triple-A Las Vegas Aviators. Yeah, the team dominating the PCL right now. And he's been watching the next wave of A's talent up close and personal. I'm talking about the voice of the Aviators, Matthew Neverett. The Aviators, they're stacked. First place in the early going, and it's no accident. Grant Holman's been dealing, and Daniel Susac, remember that name, folks. He's your reigning Pacific Coast League Player of the Week. Oh, yeah, he was also a first-round pick out of Arizona. This roster isn't just loaded, it's primed. But before we get into all the minor league mayhem, let's talk about the major buzz around the A's, and it's all about one man. You know, Nick Kurtz, the number 4 overall pick in 2024, just got called up yesterday and is set to make his big league debut tomorrow. This isn't hype. This is the future crashing through the door. And guess who has been around Kurtz every single day? Yep, Matt Neverett. He's seen the swings, the work, the attitude. So the question is Nick Kurtz ready for MLB pitching? Is he ready to make a difference in the A's lineup? Let's find out. Without further ado, the man with the mic and the insight, Matthew Neverett. Matt, thank you so much for coming on, bud. Exciting times for the Aviators, for the A's, for everything in the organization. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, doing well, Booney. Happy to be on with you. And yeah, you said it. Really exciting. I got a first-place Aviators team. Got a lot of excitement with some call-ups at the big league level. And yeah, the system just kind of rolling. We're getting into that time of year where a lot of the roster moves start coming hot and heavy. So a lot of this time of year is getting to know some of the new players. You got your opening day roster. And then, as you know, in minor league baseball, this is about the time when you start getting a lot of fresh faces at the end of month one.
Absolutely. Obviously, I mean, there's a ton of great players in the whole A's organization, but the buzz right now is around Nick Kurtz. You've been around him all season long with regard to his development and so forth. A couple questions with regard to Nick Kurtz. First and foremost, what's your feeling on him? Is he the real deal? Is he the real guy? What do you think as far as being around him so far for the last few weeks?
I mean, yeah, tough to tell after just a couple of weeks typically, but Kurtz is kind of a different animal. I mean, he is every bit of 6 feet 5 inches tall. I
He's a
think
big
he's
boy.
listed at like 230, 240, somewhere in there right now. He's definitely got some room to grow in that frame as well and add some power. I mean, you look at him and he's like a middle linebacker when you meet him. And it's funny because he's such a young guy. This time last year, he was attending college classes at Wake Forest and playing in his third and final year with the Demon Deacons. And then here he is now on the major league roster for the Athletics. We're seeing that kind of trend take place here in Major League Baseball. You know, I spent a long time rooting for the Pirates and working for the Pirates, and we saw what happened with Paul Skeens going from college to the major leagues in under a year. We're seeing
players are more ready now. Yeah, it seems like
we're seeing a lot of, especially the advanced college bats. I think that's always kind of been the guys that have the fastest rise through minor league systems are the guys that played 3 or 4 years at some big league or big time college programs and make it into the big leagues within their first year or two in the minor league system. The thing that has impressed me the most about Nick Kurtz batting so far has been his power to the opposite field.
Yeah,
had 7 home runs with the Aviators before the call up today, and I think 3 or 4 of them were the other way. I mean, and not just little pokes that cleared the fence. I mean, moon shots to left field. He sprays the ball everywhere. Even his outs are hard. I saw a number the other day that he's got the 3rd highest barrel rate of all Triple-A batters so far this season. He's a guy who doesn't get cheated on swings. And, he'll find a spot. It was told to me as a kid, all growing up playing baseball, if you can hit, he'll find the spot for you. And for Nick Kurtz, that spot has come quickly.
Absolutely. Played a little devil's advocate here. Nick Kurtz was close to 400. He's had his last week was real rough. I believe he was in a little bit of a 3 for 20 slump. In the second question to that is his K rate's high. He struck out about 27 times, which is unlike him. He's supposed to be an elite bat to ball guy. Is the pressure, do you think, got to him a little bit, or all the rumblings got to him in the last week, or hey, that's just how it goes sometimes?
You know, as far as the pressure and the talk, I don't know if that's necessarily the case here at the Triple-A level. Obviously, I can't speak for him personally, but I think a lot of it is just the adjustments that were made. You know, he came out, there really wasn't a lot of tape on him as far as professional games.
Right.
He had played, I think, 12 games last year between 2 lower levels in the minor league system for the A's. So there really wasn't a lot of tape. And what tape there was against younger pitching, talking 19, 20, 21-year-olds. He was basically older than all the guys that he had faced off against last year coming out of the college ranks. So especially at the Triple-A level and especially in the hitter-friendly PCL, you'll have some veteran arms. You'll have a lot of adjustments. So I think that that's more of what it was, is teams and individual arms themselves started to make those adjustments. And you said it, he was coming off of his worst series of the year. So those adjustments were made. I think for a guy like him, you almost wanted to see a little bit of failure to see how he'd react. Right. And the strikeouts are what they're going to be. He's going to be a free swinger. He's going to be a big swinger. So those strikeouts are going to be there. I don't think that's as much of a cause for concern for major league organizations nowadays as it used to be maybe even 10 years ago.
How is he on the defensive side? Coming out of Wake Forest, he's known as an above-average fielder. I don't know what he's been for the Aviators so far. What I've seen, he's been okay. He's made the plays he's supposed to. Not much vertical range, but again, that's a limited view. What's the thoughts on him defensively at first?
You know, for me personally, from what I've seen, I would kind of pin him as an average first baseman. I know a lot of his prospect rankings have him as a 60 grade. I don't know if he's that good defensively, and I don't mean that as a negative necessarily.
Right, of course.
Because again, with that bat, they're going to find a spot for him. We've seen him make a couple of errors. Saw him drop a pop fly last homestand a couple of weeks ago. But the grades are what they are. There is a lot of tape on him at first base defensively. He's a guy who's going to be in the lineup for his bat. You'll take the defense where you can get it, especially at first base, which there's not always that premium on defense. So if he can be an average defender at worst, you're going to get something special with the way that bat plays, and especially in Sacramento at that ballpark, at Sutter Health Ballpark, once the weather heats up and the ball starts flying out of there.
100%. The guy that I pay attention to pretty much all the levels of the minor leagues, and the guy that I thought was going to get the call before Kurtz was Brett Harris. Mm-hmm. And obviously he went on the 7-day IL, no timeline for his, I believe it's a sprained wrist, correct? Or sprained thumb?
Yeah, wrist, thumb, something in this kind of area. It was a play last week on the road in El Paso where he had a base hit, took a big turn around the base, and they actually threw behind him. and he kind of tripped, fell, and did one of those numbers where you go to catch yourself like you're walking down the street and you trip, and kind of landed on this area and definitely sprained something. Yeah, I haven't heard a timeline for his return.
Yeah.
I don't believe surgery is on the table. I think it's going to be a rest and a rehab thing, but I could be wrong. You never know. Thumb injuries have a tendency to...
Yeah, you never know. It could be a couple weeks. It could be, a month and a half. Who knows? I'm bummed out because he was hurt during spring training, and I think he's the best defensive player in the whole organization. He's a 2-time WCC Defensive Player of the Year out of Gonzaga. But the whole question with him was his bat, right? And to see him start to get it going in Vegas and start to hit the gaps and do it, it was awesome to see. And he could play all the infield positions. I mean, he's just so. I hope he comes back quick. I was excited about his rise. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Aviators right now in first place. I believe 15-6, is that right?
Yeah, they have done it with almost uncharacteristically good pitching. Typically,
yes.
if you know anything about the Pacific Coast League, it is a hitter's haven. Ballparks in Albuquerque and El Paso, Texas, which is over 5,000 feet elevation. We're just over 2,000 feet elevation here in Vegas. So the emphasis is always on hitting, and the A's have always struggled to develop pitchers at this level because of that. Salt Lake, another really high atmosphere or high elevation atmosphere here in the Pacific Coast League, but the pitching has been number 2 in ERA. The bullpen has been by far the number 1 bullpen in the PCL, which has been the area where the Aviators have typically struggled in years past.
Absolutely. No, I mean, no question. And one of those guys in the bullpen is Grant Holman. I mean, Grant Holman got brought up last year. And really how he didn't make the big league roster this year was a lot of stuff that just happened that was unlucky in his case. And what I mean by that is you had Noah Murdoch, who's a Rule 5 guy, and him and his Holman's springs were comparable. But the other guy that just took everybody by shock is Justin Sterner. Justin Sterner through spring and the regular season so far is on 22 innings scoreless with 35 Ks and 8 walks or something like that, something ridiculous. So, but right now in Vegas, I mean, 9 1/3, I think, 2 hits, 1 walk, 10 Ks, I want to say. What's your impression of Holman so far? And what do you think his timeline is?
I mean, I'm with you, Booney. I was kind of surprised he didn't make the major league roster coming out of camp. I think he's still, to this day, even playing here in Vegas, is one of the best arms that the A's have at their disposal, regardless of level. But I think you make a good point. Kind of just unfortunate luck and timing. He was just kind of the odd man out of a crop of guys that all throw in the mid to upper 90s. But I think the great equalizer for him is his splitter. Okay. I mean, he's a big dude, throws hard. He utilizes that splitter very often. You'll see a lot of guys that throw that split, especially, big American right-handers. One of the things I've been learning about a lot this year is the difference between guys that came up in America and how they throw their splitter, and a lot of the Japanese and Korean pitchers and how they throw their splitter, because they're not huge. They don't throw hard more often than not. But for Holman, I mean, he's got hands like Roger Clemens. When I met Roger Clemens one time, it made me feel like I had little baby doll hands.
Right, huh?
Yeah. But Grant Holman is huge, massive hands, and just kind of gets around the ball. Looks like he's holding a golf ball. And he utilizes that thing all the time. And here in Vegas specifically, he's been, I think, the best reliever in my 5 years here. He had almost 3 scoreless months last year when he got called up from Double-A Midland and route to his major league debut. And he's going to be a guy that pitches in the back end of a bullpen in the major league somewhere for a long time. And he's a bulldog. I love his attitude. First pitch strikes galore. I think that's what separates him from a lot of other hard-throwing end of bullpen relievers.
And I think you said it. I think it's just a situation where it's not really a bad personnel decision by the A's, just odd man out, right? Otanya's is down. I think when he comes back, Murdoch's going to go back down. So it's just a timing situation, but he'll get his shot. And what are you supposed to do? I mean, you're paying for Leclerc. He's not going anywhere. And, Ferguson has been nails for us last year. So, it's just a matter of timing, but it's good to see him going on. Question about a guy that is my favorite prospect. Personally, I love him a lot. Is Jack Perkins. He's been hurt. Is there any word on when he's coming back or a timeline?
I haven't heard anything on him. He's a guy that we really haven't had too much exposure to in Vegas here, but it's going to be a welcome addition when he does eventually get here. We haven't had a series this year. The Aviators haven't, where they have not used a bullpen day in one of the 6 games. So I think once they're able to kind of get some more depth, especially with Otanya is likely to rehab here starting in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The bullpen that's already as big as we've seen over the last couple of years in terms of bodies is going to get even bigger. So there's going to be some movement, and I think some swingmen like Jack Cushing are going to have an opportunity to get a couple of starts a couple of times through the rotation as they try to kind of buck that trend, because at this level, it's definitely not sustainable to have a bullpen day a week if you want to have, sustained success. The other thing you got to consider is with the way that the playoffs are structured here at Triple-A, it's kind of 2 different seasons. You have your first half champion
and the second half. That's like indie ball, right? Yeah, that's a little bit of a trip how they do it. Your top 2 teams in the first half, but once you make that top half in the first half, you're already in, and then the second half's kind of weird,
Yeah, so it's just the first half champion versus the second half champion played at the site of the first half champion. Winner.
You're kidding? It's just the 2 teams. It's not top four for semis. Wow.
Just 1 and 1, because it's only 10 teams here in the PCL.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's going to be those 2. They play a 3-game series at the first half champions ballpark, and the winner of that one's going to come back here to Vegas at the end of September for the Triple-A championship game. Just the 1 game for all the marbles.
Is that right? That is crazy. You were talking a little bit about rehab. Now, will Zach Geloff be down in Triple-A Vegas when he's ready to rehab, or is he going to just stay up? Do you know anything about that, or how's that work?
I haven't heard anything definitively. I sure hope we get him here. He's been one of my favorite guys, both on and off the field here over the last couple of years. I think him and Max Muncy were, 2 of my favorites. I also grew up playing second base, so I'm a little biased there. But for Geloff, if we do have him here, that'd be great. I'll add just a little bit of extra power for the little bit that he's here. I saw that he started kind of a hitting progression last week.
I saw too.
Does such a great job keeping us up to date on these guys. So I would imagine we'll see him here maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I haven't heard anything definitively. That's just my best guess. Just going off of the timeline we've seen from other injuries and how the A's push guys through, because organization to organization, it is a little bit different. So, I sincerely hope we have Zach Geloff. I would guess maybe a week. Typically, you'll get him here for a week to maybe 2 weeks before they get him back up. And a lot of it, too, depends on what's going on at the big league level. If Muncy's continuing to struggle, especially with the power, they may push Geloff up a little bit faster than normal if he's ready to go. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. You mentioned a little bit you were with the Pirates organization for a bit and did that. In Triple-A and the minors, it's hard, I guess. It's hard to really focus on winning in a sense because it's always kind of a revolving door, right?
Yeah.
As far as, hey, you get into that playoff push, you have one of your better players, and all of a sudden the big team needs them, and you lose that. What's the difference in organizations, or have you seen a difference as far as trying to build culture and dealing with that and so forth and longevity? It must be brutal to try to build that. Is there a difference that you've seen?
I mean, it's an interesting kind of conundrum, because at the end of the day, a minor league Triple-A championship really doesn't mean much on paper, so to speak. But you'll see teams that will keep guys together kind of in groupings going up through the system. And those are the types of organizations that have minor league champions. I think the Tampa Bay Rays are probably the best example of that. They dominate at most levels of the minor leagues. I think it was 2 seasons ago, they won – it was 3 or 4 league championships at various minor league levels. And those guys kind of, like I said, come up in groups. So they kind of learn how to win together. And I think the Yankees did that best back in the day. late 90s, early 2000s with the core four and a lot of those guys that they had kind of coming up through their minor league ranks at the same time as big time prospects. So you'll see certain organizations that I don't want to say care more, but that put more of an emphasis on winning at the minor league level. I think Tampa is probably chief among them. That being said, I'm trying to think. So I've been working in minor league baseball since 2017. I have not been a part of a playoff team for any of the minor league teams that I've worked for. So yeah, they can blame me all they want. In that regard, I think this year's Aviators team probably has the best chance, especially with the hot start. But it is interesting, organization to organization, kind of seeing, these 6 guys have all come up together and they've won 2 league championships in their 4 years in the minor leagues. So they know how to win together once they get to the big leagues. I think there is something to be said for that. Kind of a funny story, an example to the opposite of that was 2 seasons ago, not last year, but 2 years ago, the Reno Aces, the Triple-A team for the Diamondbacks here in our league, had on the last day of the regular season, the Aviators had completely collapsed that year. I think they lost something like 10 of their last 12 to fall out of that second half champion conversation. So it was Reno and Round Rock on that last day, and there was a bunch of tiebreakers. But for Reno, they had to win. If they lost, they were out. You know what the Diamondbacks did on that day that told me they do not care about winning at this level? Mark Melanson, who was one of my all-time favorites as a Pirates guy, was still holding on. He was coming off of his second Tommy John surgery at the age of 35, 36. He had not pitched since spring training. Keep in mind, this is September at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Not the spring training. The D-backs were kind of outside looking in on a playoff spot at that point anyway. And they were like, hey, let's see if we can get Melanson a rehab outing or 2 in the minor leagues and get him back up for the playoffs. He gave up 6 runs in the first inning of the last game here. Aces lost. Diamondbacks folded. They didn't make the playoffs. So that completely blew up in their face. And Mark Melanson in a rehab start on the last day in a must-win game didn't even make it out of the first inning. So that's a funny example to the opposite of that.
Daryl Hernandez, he's looked really, really good. And what's crazy about the game of baseball, it's so dominated on numbers. And his numbers don't do him justice. He took an 0 for 6, I think, on Sunday, right? Which just all of a sudden dips it. But you take that game out, I mean, his numbers are looking off the charts. What's your thoughts on him? It seems like he's starting to hit with a little bit more power, starting to hit with a little bit more gap, something that he struggled with. How's his progress to you looked?
It's been really good on both sides of the ball. I mean, defensively, even with the 0 for 6 on Sunday, he made a couple of outstanding defensive plays at short, both of them diving into the hole on a backhand and popping up, quickly throwing to first. That has certainly improved. You mentioned his power. That has been the number one improvement for me. And I remember 2 days before the regular season started, we did all of our media day, asset photo shoots and video shoots here at the ballpark, and then the team worked out on the field. And I remember sitting up here in the press box and watching Hernandez during batting practice, just spraying the ball over the fence to all parts of the yard. And batting practice, especially here in Vegas, everybody kind of hits for power. All these guys by this level should be, hitting home runs somewhat regularly in batting practice. For Daryl, the ball was jumping off of his bat more so than I had seen in years past. And I talked to him on opening day before the first game, and I said, it looked like in BP you were definitely hitting with a little bit more oomph, a little bit more pop overall. He said, no, that's by design. He said that he really focused on keeping the weight to his backside in the offseason and keeping the hands starting higher in the swing to generate more leverage. He kind of sounds, counterintuitive, but he said he focused more on going high to low, and that really allowed him to stay more into his backside and almost like a golfer shift that shoulder tilt to be able to get a little bit more lift under the ball. And he's had great success utilizing that additional leverage with a couple of home runs already. And going into Sunday, he led the Pacific Coast League in doubles. He had ripped 8 so far, most of them down the line and left. So when he sees the ball well and can get on top of it, kind of some newfound power for Hernandez. And again, one of the nicest guys in baseball. He's been one of my favorites in my time.
Is that right, huh?
He's the man.
Pretty cool. I can't go without talking about the fielders without talking about Denzel Clark, who's been on the IL a little bit. I think he's scheduled to come back this week or next week. He is a MLB-ready defensive center fielder. And we saw a little bit of that when the A's actually played the Aviators in Vegas, when he made that unbelievable play against when the A's played the Diamondbacks in Vegas. His question is his bat. How's he look so far? I know it's only been about 8 games he's played. What's your thoughts on Denzel? He sure looks the part.
Yeah, freak athlete, And he gets that from his mom. She was a Canadian
Yep.
heptathlete and sprinter in Team Canada in the 90s in the Olympics. And he shows off that athleticism at every opportunity he gets. I mean, defensively, you said it, and it's been well known. He is as good as it gets defensively. He could play a major league center field right now. Reminded me kind of a guy on the defensive side that had been here in Vegas and with the A's for a couple of years, and Christian Pache. Now, Pache was anemic offensively. I think you and I might put up at a similar batting average to Pache, at least from what we've seen. Nothing against Christian. I know he's
I got you. Yeah.
But for Denzel Clark, he is like Pache plus Olympic track speed. I mean, he's twitchy, he's rangy. He's one of the few guys that I've enjoyed watching run the base paths over the last couple of years. There was a play in one of the homestands early in the year when he was healthy that he went from first to home on a double down the line and right. And it seemed like he took 5 steps in between each base. I mean, he runs like a gazelle, helps that he is as tall as he is and as big as he is. And the problem for him has just been putting bat to ball. When he puts the ball in play, his speed makes up for a lot of other deficiencies. You know, a routine ground ball to short is not routine with Denzel Clark sprinting down the line. So when it comes to pedigree and defense and athleticism, I don't know if you'll find a better prospect on any team in Major League Baseball. For him, it's just about consistency and starting to put the ball in play with some more regularity, especially to the outfield. You know, ground balls are nice. He'll beat those out more so than the average guy. But if he's able to start hitting gap-to-gap shots and work up those extra base hits, I think it will be just a matter of time before he makes the big leagues.
I tell you, the guy that shocked me the most is Daniel Susac. Daniel Susac had a real bad, didn't have the best of springs. He was very okay last year. I believe he was in Midland last year. Mm-hmm. And this year, his start to the season was awful. All of a sudden, he has been on fire. 10 for his last 16, his PCL Player of the Week. I mean, he's a first-round pick, so I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised.
Yeah, he's kind of figured it out, and that week that he has had started with a 4-for-4 performance on Tuesday. He had a walk-off home run and a 6-5 victory in a day game here to open the week, and really never slowed down. He had another home run en route to winning PCL Player of the Week, as you had mentioned. He's got a great arm behind home plate as well, and he talked with my counterpart here in Vegas, Russ Langer, in one of our pregame interviews about something that we had noticed, throwing runners out at second base from his knees. He very rarely pops up, steps, and throws. And he had kind of said, hey, you know, I trust my arm even from a knee more so than a lot of other guys. And it is actually quicker for him to kind of catch, fall forward, transfer, and make that throw from his knees. And he doesn't lose anything with the arm. So he gets all the attention for his bat, but his defense has been really good as well. And you got to keep in mind, too, he's a big guy for a catcher, 6'4", 6'5". I compare him on our airwaves a lot to a guy who had a pretty decent big league career for a long time, Matt Wieters. Bigger catcher, hits for some power. He's got the pedigree as well with his older brother Andrew and his cousin Matt.
Yeah.
I think he was a surprising pick for the A's in my eyes in the first round, especially when he was drafted, because they had just signed Kyle McCann. They had just traded for Shea Langoliers. At that point, they still had a couple of other guys ahead of him. And then you mentioned this spring, Susac struggled, but the other thing you got to keep in mind is that he was like the 4th or 5th catcher going in. Kyle McCann was still, on the payroll. They had, a couple other guys kind of filtering in for reps.
Pareda came in.
Pareda as well. So Pareda, Langoliers, and McCann were all kind of ahead of him. So he went into spring likely not thinking that he was going to get a shot.
Willie hasn't been bad either.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a log jam, but it's a pretty crowded spot behind home plate for the A's, and with Tyler Soderstrom playing mostly first base, and from what I'm seeing, going to play a little bit of left field as well with Nick Kurtz, that does open up a little bit of a gap. And so for Susac, that avenue is there. If he can keep hitting and keep doing what he's doing behind home plate, which has been outstanding, he's got a legit shot in a pretty crowded spot in the A's organization. Yeah,
absolutely, no question. Last guy I want to cover is personally the guy I was rooting for real hard to make the opening day roster. I knew it was a long shot, just because when he got drafted, he was supposed to be the next coming. It hasn't worked out for him, but it seems like he's putting it all together right now. That's Logan Davidson. He led the A's in batting in spring training. Some of the home runs he hit were just absolute mammoth bombs, and he's doing it right now in Triple-A Vegas. He hasn't hit for the power expected, but shoot, the guy's getting close to 400, and we know it's there. How has he been on both sides, defensively and offensively. I love Davidson. Big fan.
He's awesome. First rounder in 2019 out of Clemson. He is probably the most flexible player that I've seen in terms of both defense and offense in all of minor league baseball. In his now 3 years with Las Vegas, he has played every position except for pitcher and catcher. He has batted,
right.
I'm not even kidding, literally just about dead even from both sides of the plate. He's a true switch hitter. And I remember asking him last year, everybody starts hitting from one side of the plate and then you learn to hit from the other side, right? I asked him, what is your natural hand and which side did you learn second? He goes, no, when I started playing baseball, my dad had me switch hitting from the beginning. So he's not a natural lefty that learned to hit righty or vice versa. He is a natural switch hitter, has always been, and is a phenomenal athlete. He's a big guy at 6'4", doesn't hit for a ton of power like you had said. That is really the only knock on him offensively. He does, get into them every now and then, but he's more of a true doubles hitter, gap to gap, a lot of line drives. Doesn't strike out a ton, and like I said, literally has almost the exact same batting average career from both sides of the plate. But also probably the best batting eye right now in minor league baseball. He leads the Pacific Coast League in walks and on base percentage, and he's top 5 in batting average as well. So far this year, he's played second, third, short, and left, but we saw him in those positions as well as center, right, and first base. He's a natural corner infielder, played mostly third base in college. He was a first baseman more so when he got drafted, but he's great defensively. I don't know when you'll find many 6'4" second basemen outside of Mayhew, but he plays a great second base. He plays a great infield and outfield combination. He's also, I found this one out the other day doing some research. He's the only A's first-round draft pick from 2019 until now that isn't in the big leagues on the major league roster.
No, he still hasn't made his thing. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
I think he's going to get a shot this year. I think he's hitting himself into where they have to take that in notice. I think
especially
also
spring training too. Yeah.
If he was playing his natural-ish first base spot, it'd be a little bit more difficult to call him up. But since he can literally play anywhere on the diamond with the same defensive acumen, I think he's going to get a shot sooner than later, especially if he keeps hitting like he is. And I know I've said this about a lot of guys. He's one of the best guys. He is one of the most down-to-earth, humble individuals I've ever met.
Awesome.
His dad was a major league player as well, so he kind of grew up around it, and he's got as good a pedigree and as good an attitude, I would say, about it as anybody. He doesn't really have highs or lows. He is one of the most consistent guys everywhere on the diamond.
Last question, Matt, and I'll let you go. With starting pitching always being kind of a moving target for the A's, and when fans look at the stats in the PCL and Triple-A, it's hard to, because the PCL is such a hitter friendly type of league. Who's the one pitcher? Who do you have your eye on? Who's been the most impressive out there? Who is a potential starter? We know about Holman. We know about some of the lefties down there like Crook and so forth. Who's the one starter that you're like, hey, keep an eye out for him?
It was JT Ginn, but he's pushed his way up there. Yeah, he made 2 starts with us this year here in Las Vegas.
19 Ks, 2 walks, amazing. Yeah.
He won back-to-back PCL Pitcher of the Week in those 2 starts. So he wasn't destined to stay here long. I think the name that I am keeping an eye on and I kind of want to see that next step is Gunnar Hoagland.
I was going to say that same thing, yeah.
From the Blue Jays. Nothing against Mason Barnett, who's really the other name that kind of came to mind, but I think Hoagland has a bit higher of an upside. Yeah. And he's, pretty true sinker slider guy. I think if he can throw strikes with regularity, he can get a ton of outs. And the strikeout stuff for him started to come along. It really was the same story for JT. I see a lot of similarities between Gunnar Hoagland and JT Ginn as far as their progression, because last year, JT was strictly sinker slider, get your ground ball outs, get those quick innings, get through 6 or 7 on the strength of, soft contact. And then this year, he really started to miss a lot of bats en route to getting called up pretty quickly and easily. So I think if Hoagland can maybe develop a kind of a tertiary pitch, if he can really bring that change up along or add some kind of a overhand 12-6 curve, I think that he'll really do a good job as far as missing more bats and kind of opening some eyes, because nowadays, I'm old school. I love the sinker slider guys. I love seeing guys that'll, get out of there, 7 innings and 80 pitches or something like that. But to really open some eyes around the analytics community, you got to miss some bats. So I think that's for Gunnar Hoagland. And if he can do that, I think it's not going to be too long before he gets his first call up as well.
Matt, hey, thank you so much for your time, man. You've been unbelievable. Go Aviators, go A's, go everybody.
Happy to help, Booney, anytime.
Appreciate it. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts.